Words have meaning, but people don't always mean what they say. We've got to understand that to understand the cause for defunding the police. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. This is Breakpoint. I can't breathe. The last words that George Floyd said to his killers became the chant of nationwide protest. And then, sometime last week, a new slogan emerged. Defund the police, even abolish the police. Now, at face value, this slogan sounds absurd. That's because it is. When a CNN news anchor asked the president of the Minneapolis City Council, what if in the middle of the night my home is broken into? Who do I call? The councilwoman's response, that the ability to call for help in the first place is a matter of white privilege, was, shall we say, less than enlightening. Abolishing police is the stuff of utopian fantasies. It's only possible in worlds without evildoers. Because such worlds do not exist, law enforcement of some kind, at least here on Earth, will always be necessary. To think otherwise is just to misunderstand the human condition. The line separating good and evil, wrote Solzhenitsyn, passes not through states, nor classes, nor political parties. Neither does it pass through occupations, as if policemen are intrinsically evil, while social workers or teachers or protesters are intrinsically good. See, the problem's in all of us, in every human heart. Still, just because law enforcement will always be necessary this side of the new earth does not mean that reform of law enforcement is unnecessary. Indeed, this is actually what many people mean, despite what they're saying. House Majority Whip James Clyburn, a veteran of the Civil Rights Movement, worries that calls to defund or abolish the police could hijack the momentum to make serious police reforms in the wake of George Floyd's death. As he put it, if you mean reimagining policing, say that. In fact, police departments across the nation have made reforms in recent years, attempting to root out corruption and improve community relations. An oft-cited example is Camden, New Jersey, one of the most violent cities in America not that long ago. And then in 2012, after concluding that police corruption was a contributor to the violence, the city dissolved the department, turned law enforcement over to the county. Twice the number of officers were put on the street, but they had a new emphasis known as community policing, while still spending less money. And within 5 years, the number of homicides in Camden dropped by 2/3. Among the goals, as a former chief of police told NPR, was to change how the community viewed police officers, from warrior to guardian. Behind Camden's reforms are a handful of principles that are worthy of our consideration. For example, ending qualified immunity, which shields government officials from being sued for discretionary actions performed within their official capacity. This practice shields wrongdoers from accountability, and it's a problem not just, but especially in law enforcement. The police officer who knelt on the neck of George Floyd until he died should have already been held accountable for a number of previous complaints. The TSA officer in Denver who was caught selecting which male passengers he wanted to pat down in 2014 should have faced criminal charges instead of just being fired. And hospital officials who prevented my friend and his sons from seeing his wife and their mom for 3 weeks before she died last month, they should be held accountable for failed policies they're hiding behind. A second reform has to do with police unions. Among the reasons Camden dissolved its police force was because the union was making it impossible to discipline bad and corrupt officers. And mayors across the country will tell similar stories. Again, this is not a problem unique to law enforcement. If we want to see an improvement in failing schools, then teachers' unions cannot be allowed to protect bad teachers. Of course, when it comes to police, corruption and incompetence that's protected can lead to someone being killed. A final principle is that civil society simply must be strengthened. As was said in New York Magazine, in the U.S., the police are the answer for everything. To an overdose, a noisy party, a counterfeit bill in a shop, they are the first and often last resort for any complaint, no matter how petty. There's no end to the responsibilities with which we have charged them. In other words, police officers are carrying the weight of failed families, broken communities, invisible churches, and human isolation. As Chuck Colson used to say, the choice often boils down to the conscience or the constable. Only moral formation and mutual accountability can reduce our overall reliance on police. In the late 18th and early 19th century, communities in both Britain and the U.S. saw a significant drop in crime and a significant increase in safety, and even in some cases, a significant drop in the number of police officers. Why? Well, at least one reason seems to be Sunday school. Now, of course, there's also much to be said here about the increased militarization of the police. That's not a solution for a broken community, as some often like to claim. Instead, it's actually evidence of just how bad the problem is. So, defund? No. Abolish? No. Reform? Absolutely. But know this, it can't be only a government job. For Breakpoint, I'm John Stonestreet.